So, you know, who knows? You know, who knows, inshallah.
Yeah. When you read the Holy Quran, how was your feeling towards the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty Allah?
I've read the Quran 20 pages a day, you know, right, the whole lot, and then I started again. There's two, when I say two translations, there's one translation I've got in a smaller book, not smaller, you know, just smaller in size, it's phrased a lot easier in English, so it's not kind of so repetitious with the same words. But when I started reading it the second time, I started to see the sense in it. That it really, this is how I see it, it's like a guidance book. It's not a history book, which, you know, the Bible is more of a history storytelling book. But I think the biggest appeal that if you know, in Islam, the road gets very narrow, and there's no kind of, you know, half and half. And that's what I think appeals to me. You know, you can't, you know, a woman can't be half pregnant. She's pregnant or she's not. And you can't, you know, if you're going to do it, you know, I've got a long way to go still. He knows that, but I do, you know, I'm getting better. You know. And I really believe at the end of the day, at the end of our lives, I will answer to, you know, for everything. We all will.
Well done. Could you just explain a bit of a background around the book and when it was published and your media coverage and that?
Yeah. I was still married, you see. I married at the end of the book, the story, is I was down and out for 5 years in London. The amphetamine pills took their toll on me. I went totally mad. The houses, the money, the cars all vanished, although much later on I found that I hid a lot of money, and some of it I found. I didn't find it, more or less found me. But so I went mad for 5 years, lived in Salvation Army missions in Victoria and Leeds and Newcastle, roamed about, you know, looked like a dosser. And I met this girl, Honey Laurie, in the Chelsea Potter in the King's Road. We were married, and then we lived here for a while in England for about 10 years, and then she wanted to go back and live with her parents, or near her parents in Munich. And when we got back there, I had, you know, quite a bit of money, and I didn't know what to do. And it was my daughter, my first marriage, who knew part of the story, because she'd been on the run with me from the police when she was a little kid. And she said, "Write your book, Dad." And I wrote the book. So when I wrote the first draft, and I brought it to England, and a literary agent took it immediately, and then I flew to America to see another literary agent in New York. And he took it for the weekend, and he said, when he came back on the Monday, he says, the worst, and you know, a very respected literary agent, he says, the worst book I've ever read in my life. He said, I had to fight all weekend and nearly put myself on drugs trying to understand what you had to say. He said, but however, it's the most amazing story ever if you really learn how to write. So I went back and rewrote it and kind of cut out all the passion that I might have had. You know, I might have said how much I hated Fred and gone on for 5 pages. And he taught me, you just got to tell a story kind of clinically. And then it was amazing. The book got published, and we got on telly on Richard and Judy and all the TV and in all the papers. And it's now been in the shops for what, 1997, for 12 years. So it kind of, you know, I think it was meant to be. And what I'd like to do, if I get the courage, is, because the book finishes when I'm 36 years old, is write the next part of the story. You know, and really kind of, if you like, show in more detail the peace that Islam has given me. You know, so many kids are, I think it's very hard for kids today because drugs are much more available than they were. You know, when I was a kid on drugs when we started this book, there's probably, I was 1 in 1,000 probably, it might have been more, it might have been 1 in 5,000, might have been 1 in 10,000 on drugs. You know, I knew of nobody else in my entire school, of 600 boys that were taking drugs. I knew of nobody else I knew was, you know, so it was a very minor thing. Now today it's like 1 in 3 or something. You know, when I snatched this woman's handbag, it was a very serious crime. You know, 1958, whenever it was, 1959, it was deemed a very serious crime. Today it's like, probably the police wouldn't even investigate. If an old lady went in today, do you know what I mean, to the local police station, said some kids just come by on his bike and snatched my bag, they'll go, give us your name, we'll let you know if we find it. You know, those days it was a very, very serious crime. So, you know, the kids today need far more help than I did. Far more.
I was going to say, in this area, there's a lot of gang warfare, like between it's postcode, fighting over a postcode. There's Drummond Street, Cromer Street, Cali, and they're fighting each other and they're Muslim youth. What advice can you give them? Because you've been there, you've done that.
Right. What you see, this is where I think the gangs come from. I went and snatched handbags because there was no, and the reason I did is obviously I was missing something at home. There was something not in my house, and we had all the, you know, the, what do you call it? You know, the food was there, the materialistic things was there. So I went out and snatched handbags because there was no love, there was nothing, there's something badly missing. The kids that joined the gangs in their different postcodes are missing the same things. So they want to belong, and just as I felt I belonged because an older robber was saying you drove well, kid, they want to belong. So they join their postcode gang. And the advice that I give them is that somehow it's very hard, but somehow the gangs should all get together and fight together, if you like. Fight the, but in a like a civilised way. Fight the corruption that we've all just read about with the MPs, with their expenses. Fight the corruption in government that's going on, you know, all the time. So the real villains today, in my eyes, are the people that are running the country. You know, the Olympic Games is making somebody very, very rich. Not just one, but a lot of people. The underground system, you know, with there's backhanders there, left, right and centre and so on. So they're kind of, the gangs are really looking for recognition. And an older kid has got a knife, and so a younger kid of 14 sees the kid of 18 with a knife. He gets a knife, a row starts in the street over something quite petty. The younger kid pulls out a knife, he lunges at an older kid because he's a bit frightened, stabs him and the kid dies. Now he's on a murder rap. So they're not really, you know, deep in their hearts, none of them want to kind of go out fighting every night. But it's the only, I personally think, it's the only way they can feel they belong to anything. And you've only got to get one real lunatic at the top of each gang, and then let more vulnerable kids emotionally join the gangs and so on. But you need to kind of, if you like, you need to infiltrate the gangs. Hard coup, you know, and then try and bring them out. Bring them here and let them leave the knives at the door. But it's a serious problem with the youth today.
Yep. Welcome to a big family, brother. Start off with Jazakallah khair for highlighting your life for us. The question I'd like to ask, there's a lot of young brothers who aspire to the gang warfare, the gang life.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them?
It's a hard question to it's a hard question to answer, because I give the advice now as an old man looking back. But I think if you paint a clear picture for them of where the gang life will take them. So the gang life is only going to take them to prison. They're not going to ever rule London. And I think if you sat down with them, perhaps say, look, there's 12 kids in your gang and you call yourself the North West 1 gang. You're never going to take over London. You won't take over the Turks of Palmer's Green and Wood Green with the heroin trade. You won't take over the Italians, and you won't take over the Chinese, rather, in the West End. So where is your life in the gang ever going to go? And perhaps show them that way. But also you've got to replace the gang with something else. That's the hard part. And If there's something else, is like